creak. The floor bowed and bent loudly under Asgrim's thick cowhide boots. The wooden boards of the cabin that stretched out before the Nordic mage were all covered in dust and darkness and were draped in a slick and blue frost. Creak. Asgrim took another step into the house that, for him, was more unsettling than you could ever imagine any plane of Oblivion ever being. Not that Asgrim had been to the Deadlands, or to Apocrypha, the Shivering Isles, or to any of the other 16 planes of destruction, debauchery, madness, and or sin. Asgrim had never been a conjurer, period. He preferred the power he could generate from his own hands over the prospect of trusting fireballs expelled from the palms of literal demons to land where he so desired them to. He was a mage of Winterhold, however, so of course he had heard tell of the otherworldly abodes of the Daedric princes, and the world walkers and the conjurers who had regaled him with the tales of the hellish sights that they had found in Oblivion, were happier having seen said things firsthand, then all the better for them and them alone. There was no wind in the sturdy and tightly built log house. Nordic houses didn't have a habit of letting in the elements, despite being practically encased in ice and shrouded in snow inside and out. The cabin was still mostly intact. Nevertheless, the air in the cabin was absolutely frigid. Asgrim knew that it had been a very long time since anyone had filled and set ablaze the fire pit of the secluded cabin. The Nord would have drawn his cloak around himself if the cold in his chest hadn't been so much worse than the physical chill that was now creeping over his skin. He didn't care about the temperature of his body. Asgrim did not at all want to be in the small cabin, and the fact that he now found himself with an obligation to be within the house concerned him more so than even the severe frost nip that he was now experiencing. Asgrim let out a cloud of drifting mist from his mouth. It couldn't be helped, the Nord thought to himself. What had to be done, and that just had to be the end of it. Asgrim promised himself that when this disturbing business concluded itself, he would leave the log house, for good this time. The mage knew what his goal was this day, and he knew what he was searching for, and for the most part, he went about locating it methodically. Making sure not to slip on the accumulated frost that was all about and spread out under his feet, Asgrim sought out and approached a lone bedroll that he had been told would be, and now indeed confirmed to be, nestled in the corner of the cabin. All around the bedroll were signs that whoever the furs had belonged to had abandoned them in a hurry. There was a tin cup, a boot, and even a fur hat, all scattered around the bedding. From what Asgrim had been told, and the reason that he was even in the house, the previous owner of the bedroll had abandoned it, and most of his belongings, out of absolute and all-consuming fear. Supposedly, the man, who had been a Breton hunter, had been squatting in the log house, and had, by his own account, been run off by something that no man would ever want to wake up to. The hunter had escaped the cabin, then descended the surrounding mountains, all before he rushed to Winterhold, as it was the nearest town for many miles. News of the man's story had eventually gotten back to Asgrim, giving the mage a reason to make the day's trek from Winterhold to his current location. The Nord had felt obligated to investigate the claims of the Breton hunter, not for the Breton's sake, but so that he could assure himself that what the man claimed could not be true, and to rectify the situation, if it indeed was. In the Nord's mind, it was his duty. After all, the frozen cabin had once been his home.